In the heart of Arizona, where the desert sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues of orange and red, a quiet community was forever changed by a story of love, betrayal, and unimaginable tragedy. This is the story of Pastor Daniel, a man of unwavering faith, and his wife Laura, whose lives unraveled in ways no one could have foreseen. One fateful Sunday afternoon, after delivering a powerful sermon on forgiveness and redemption, Daniel returned home, unaware that the life he had built was about to crumble. The love he held for Laura, his partner of many years, would soon be tested in ways he could never have imagined. Before we dive deep into this story, please do well to like this video and subscribe to True Crime Stories Arena, where we uncover the darkest tales of love, betrayal, and the chilling consequences that follow. Daniel was a well-respected pastor in their small town, known for his compassionate nature and his unwavering commitment to his congregation. Laura, his beautiful wife, was the embodiment of grace and warmth, often seen volunteering at local charities and organizing community events. Together, they appeared to be the perfect couple, a beacon of hope and faith for those around them. However, behind closed doors, their marriage was not as idyllic as it seemed. Laura had been feeling increasingly lonely and neglected as Daniel spent long hours at the church, tending to the needs of his flock. In her vulnerability, she found herself drawn to Marcus, a delivery man who frequented their neighborhood. Marcus was charming and attentive, offering Laura the companionship she craved. What began as innocent flirtation quickly spiraled into a full-blown affair. One Sunday afternoon, as Daniel arrived home, the air was thick with tension. He sensed something was off but brushed it aside, attributing it to his own exhaustion. As he walked through the front door, the sight that met his eyes shattered his world. There, in their bed, lay Laura, entwined with Marcus, laughter echoing through the room. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound, leaving Daniel breathless with rage and disbelief. In that moment, he felt his heart shatter. But love prevailed. Instead of succumbing to anger, he chose to forgive Laura. He believed in the power of love and redemption, convinced that their marriage could be salvaged. They had built a life together, and he wanted to believe that this was just a momentary lapse in judgment. He confronted Laura, tears streaming down his face, and she, filled with remorse, begged for forgiveness. Weeks passed, and the couple attempted to rebuild their relationship. Daniel poured his heart into counseling sessions, praying for healing. He wanted to believe that their love could conquer this betrayal. In the days that followed the shocking discovery, life took on an eerie semblance of normality for the outside world. Pastor Daniel continued his duties at Grace Community Church, delivering sermons filled with messages of love and redemption. His congregation, unaware of the personal storm that raged within him, listened intently to his words. To them, he remained the pillar of strength and compassion they had always known. But behind the closed doors of his home, the pain was all too real. Daniel felt isolated in his grief. Every familiar object in the house, every framed photo on the wall, every hymn book on the shelf became a reminder of what had been lost. He moved through his days in a haze, the lines between his public persona and his private agony blurring into one continuous cycle of torment. Laura, for her part, was overcome with guilt and regret. She tried to explain that the betrayal had been a moment of weakness, a lapse in judgment born out of loneliness and isolation. She claimed that her heart had strayed not out of malice but out of a desperate search for something she felt was missing. In hushed conversations and tearful confessions, she spoke of the long days of solitude, the nights when her thoughts wandered to places of unmet need, and the moment when Marcus had appeared as a kindred spirit during a time of vulnerability. Even as she pleaded for forgiveness, the damage had been done. The community whispered behind closed doors, and the once unshakable foundation of their marriage began to show signs of stress. But despite the mounting evidence of betrayal, Daniel chose the path of forgiveness. He remembered the sermons he had delivered on the power of redemption, and he truly believed that love could overcome even the deepest of wounds. Seeking solace, Daniel reached out to his closest confidant, a friend and fellow church leader named Samuel. Samuel was a man known for his steady hand and unwavering loyalty, someone who had stood by Daniel through many trials. Over quiet cups of coffee in the back office of the church, the two men discussed the turmoil that had overtaken Daniel's life. "Forgiveness is God's will, my brother," Samuel had said softly one afternoon. "We are all imperfect, and sometimes the ones we love make mistakes. But forgiveness does not mean we forget, nor does it mean we allow our hearts to be broken time and again." Daniel nodded, though his eyes betrayed the inner storm he struggled to contain. He prayed every night, asking for guidance and clarity. Yet, even as he extended forgiveness to Laura, the betrayal left an indelible mark on his soul. At night, as he lay awake in the darkness, his mind replayed that fateful scene over and over. He saw Laura's terrified eyes and Marcus's pleading expression, images that would not fade with time. The days turned into weeks, and slowly, a fragile routine began to emerge. Laura would come home, attempting to resume her usual activities, preparing dinner, tending to the small garden behind their house, and even engaging in quiet conversations about the future. But for Daniel, every word was loaded with painful memories. The simple act of sitting together at the dinner table became a silent battleground, where unspoken accusations and lingering doubts filled the space between them. In his private moments, Daniel questioned whether he had been too lenient, too willing to accept apologies that were laced with regret. He wondered if the love he had so fiercely clung to had been nothing more than a facade. And as each day passed, the weight of this new betrayal pressed down on him, transforming his heart into a cold, unyielding stone. The world around him shattered. Daniel had worked so hard to forgive, to move past the betrayal, a mockery of the love he had cherished for years. His pride shattered, he replayed every moment, every decision. Had he been too forgiving? Had he been a fool to believe that love could overcome something like this? His congregation still looked to him for guidance, still expecting him to preach about God's will. But how could he stand before them when his own house was in disarray? But as the days turned into weeks, a new storm brewed on the horizon. Laura revealed to Daniel that she was pregnant. The news hit him like a freight train, and the world around him began to spin. In that moment, everything changed. The child was not his, a constant reminder of the betrayal he had tried to forgive. The rage that had simmered beneath the surface erupted into a violent inferno. The love he once felt for Laura was now twisted into a dark desire for revenge. How could she do this to him? How could she betray their vows so callously? On a night that was supposed to be filled with hope, Daniel confronted Laura. The atmosphere was charged with tension, and the air felt thick with unspoken words. He demanded to know the truth about the child. Laura, trembling with fear, confessed that Marcus was the father. In that moment, the world around Daniel faded away, and all he could feel was the overwhelming surge of betrayal. The next few weeks were a blur. Laura tried to convince him that they could make it work, that she wanted to raise the baby with him, that they could figure things out. But every time he looked at her stomach, every time he imagined her in bed with that delivery man, he felt something dark and uncontrollable brewing inside of him. She made plans. She started decorating a nursery. She continued her life as if nothing had happened. But to Daniel, everything had changed. He was drowning in a storm of emotions he couldn't escape. Then, one evening, as she hummed in the kitchen, stirring a pot of stew like nothing had happened, something inside Daniel snapped. He saw red. He saw betrayal. He saw the end of everything he had built. Before he could stop himself, he grabbed the kitchen knife from the counter. Laura turned, her eyes widening in horror as he lunged forward. The first stab was quick. The second, deeper. She screamed, struggling, but his hands were firm. Again. And again. And again. By the time he stopped, the kitchen was painted in blood, and Laura was gone. Reality hit like a sledgehammer. He fell to his knees, shaking hands drenched in crimson. His love, his wife, dead by his hands. He didn't run. He didn't try to hide. He called the police himself, voice eerily calm as he confessed to the crime. "I killed her," he said. "I killed my wife." When the officers arrived, they found a broken man kneeling beside the woman he once loved. The woman he had loved. The mother of his unborn child lay lifeless before him. The aftermath of that night was a blur of chaos. The police arrived, sirens blaring, and the once peaceful home was transformed into a crime scene. Daniel was arrested, his heart heavy with regret and sorrow. The community that had once looked up to him now turned their backs, unable to comprehend the horror that had unfolded. As the trial commenced, the courtroom was filled with tension. Daniel sat in silence, his mind racing with memories of happier times with Laura. He was charged with murder, and the evidence against him was overwhelming. His defense attorney argued that he had acted in a moment of passion, but the prosecution painted a different picture. They described a man consumed by jealousy and rage, a man who had taken the law into his own hands. The trial lasted for weeks, and the community was divided. Some believed in Daniel's inherent goodness, while others felt he deserved the harshest punishment. In the wake of the trial, the Phoenix community was left to grapple with a profound sense of disillusionment. Grace Community Church, once a sanctuary of hope, now became a symbol of how even the most devout can be undone by the complexities of human emotion. Members of the congregation struggled to reconcile the image of the forgiving pastor they had known with the man who had committed an act of unspeakable violence. Church members shared hushed conversations in the hallways, questioning how forgiveness could coexist with such destructive anger. Some found solace in the idea that even great men can fall, while others felt betrayed by the very institution that had once given them hope. Community leaders held meetings, trying to understand the circumstances that led to the breakdown of a marriage that had once been a pillar of faith and service. Local media played an important role in shaping public opinion. News anchors and reporters visited the church, interviewing former congregation members, neighbors, and even family friends of Daniel and Laura. Every interview added layers to the narrative, stories of a man who had once been loved by many and a woman whose kindness had touched countless lives. Yet, the story was irrevocably overshadowed by the gruesome act that had brought it all to an end. One neighbor, Mr. Thompson, recalled in a quiet interview, "I remember when Pastor Daniel used to greet everyone with a smile. Now, all I feel is sadness and confusion. How could things fall apart so badly?" His words resonated with many who had known the couple, reflecting a collective mourning for a community lost to tragedy. As weeks turned into months, discussions about the case began to surface in local support groups and counseling sessions. Psychologists weighed in on the case, discussing how the interplay of betrayal, guilt, and unaddressed emotional pain can lead to catastrophic outcomes. In several televised discussions, experts talked about the dangers of suppressing grief and the importance of seeking help before the darkness becomes overwhelming. These conversations sparked a broader dialogue within the community about mental health, marital counseling, and the need for more robust support systems in places of worship. While the case of Pastor Daniel was tragic beyond measure, many hoped that it would serve as a cautionary tale, a reminder that even those who are considered pillars of faith and strength are vulnerable to the same emotional wounds as anyone else. To fully understand the tragedy that unfolded, it is important to look back at the lives of those involved. Both Pastor Daniel and Laura had histories that shaped their perceptions of love, trust, and commitment. Their early years were filled with dreams, aspirations, and moments of both joy and sorrow. Daniel grew up in a modest home where faith was a way of life. His parents, devout and hard-working, instilled in him the values of honesty, compassion, and perseverance. From a young age, he learned that every act of kindness had the power to change the world, and he carried that belief with him throughout his life. His journey into the ministry was driven by a desire to bring light into the lives of those who were struggling, to offer hope where there seemed to be none. Laura's childhood, while marked by love, was not without its challenges. Raised in a community where every day brought new struggles, she learned early on the importance of resilience. Her warm demeanor and generous spirit made her a beacon of comfort for those around her. When she met Daniel, she felt as though she had finally found a partner who understood the true meaning of commitment, a man who would stand by her through the trials and triumphs of life. Their early years together were filled with moments of quiet joy, long walks through the park, shared laughter over simple meals, and the countless small gestures that define a loving relationship. Their wedding, a joyous celebration of faith and unity, was attended by family, friends, and members of the church who believed that this union was blessed by a higher power. Yet, as time went on, the pressures of maintaining a public image began to weigh on both of them. The expectations placed on a pastor and his wife were immense. Every smile, every gesture was scrutinized by a community that believed in perfection. Over the years, subtle cracks began to form, hidden behind polite smiles and quiet reassurances. Laura's inner struggles, compounded by isolation and the heavy mantle of expectation, set the stage for the choices that would later have devastating consequences. As the jury deliberated, the weight of the world rested on their shoulders. Finally, the verdict was delivered. Daniel was found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years in prison. Behind bars, Daniel reflected on the choices he had made. He had lost everything: his wife, his faith, and his freedom. The guilt consumed him, and he often thought about the life that could have been. He longed for redemption but knew that it would never come. As the years passed, the story of Pastor Daniel became a cautionary tale, a reminder of how love can twist into something unrecognizable when betrayal enters the picture. The community mourned the loss of Laura, a woman who had touched so many lives, and the tragedy served as a stark reminder of the fragility of relationships. In the end, the love that once bound Daniel and Laura was shattered, leaving behind a legacy of pain and regret. The echoes of their story would linger in the hearts of those who knew them, a haunting reminder of the consequences of betrayal and the darkness that can reside within even the most faithful of hearts. This true crime story, as harrowing as it is more than just a recounting of a tragic event. It is a deep exploration of the human spirit, a look at how the ideals of faith, forgiveness, and redemption can sometimes be overwhelmed by the dark forces of betrayal and unchecked anger. Pastor Daniel's transformation from a respected spiritual leader to a man condemned by his own actions is a stark reminder that no one is immune to the vulnerabilities of the human heart. As Phoenix continues to heal and move forward, the memory of that fateful night remains a powerful lesson. It is a reminder to cherish honesty in our relationships, to confront our own pain before it festers, and to always seek help when the weight of life becomes too much to bear alone. May the story of Pastor Daniel, Laura, and Marcus serve as both a warning and a call to action, a call to build communities that are resilient, supportive, and truly understanding of the complexities that lie within every heart. If you're captivated by stories that explore the complexities of the human spirit, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to True Crime Stories Arena. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Let us know in the comments, what would you have done in Pastor Daniel's shoes? Could forgiveness have prevailed, or was tragedy inevitable?